This story where Solomon managed to command this huge demon like a genie, a Jewish exorcist that would cast out demons in the name of Solomon. In the Testament of Solomon, the part I remember and that I think makes up the bulk of the book calls up demon after demon. And it confesses its name and what it's in charge of. No, it's got to be part this and part that to symbolize the line between two realities. You're crossing from one into the other. And when you're invoking demons, obviously you're breaching the barrier between this world and the next.
Dr. Price, we have a question from Socratic Kin. He says, Derek, can we get a deep dive into the Testament of Solomon? This looks like a wild story, but I'm going to need a pro to unpack both the mythology and its history. Well, I decided I'd get somebody who's a pro to talk about something that they're aware of in the Testament of Solomon. Can we talk about its mythology and history?
Yeah, it's, I don't know if anybody knows exactly when it was written. I would guess somewhere in late antiquity. That is not the ancient world, but like 5th, 6th century or whatever. It was big in the Middle Ages. Sometimes called, right. It's one of several magic books attributed to Solomon or supposedly derived from. There's also the Greater Key of Solomon and the Lesser Key of Solomon, which just means there was larger and a smaller book. But this and plenty of other Solomonic pseudepigrapha, the Psalms of Solomon, the Odes of Solomon, the Song of Solomon, etc., etc. Well, Solomon was supposed to be so wise, with wisdom given him by God, and the ancients figured, well, that's got to include magic, just like Joseph was given wisdom by God, and he's a diviner and a dream interpreter and so on. So that was just part of the package. And Jesus was esteemed as a magician. So was Moses. There are various Moses magic books, the 6th and 7th books of Moses, etc. And the big story about Solomon as a magician was they figured that he managed to master a great demon. I've read it with the demon being Asmodeus, who was a Persian Zoroastrian demon, also called Ashmedai. And others have another demon, but at any rate, the idea was the Temple of Solomon, as described in the Bible, was a huge structure made of gigantic blocks and so on, kind of like the pyramids are. And they figured, you know how people look at those structures today and say, wow, that must have been space aliens with anti-grav devices and tractor beams and all that, just because the magnitude of the job seems beyond them. But the ancients were no dopes, as I always like to say. The same sort of thinking probably led to this story where Solomon managed to command this huge demon, like a genie kind of, in fact that's what genies are in Arabic, to hoist up the building blocks for the temple and bring them and deposit them on site. And so that was the real, the big magic feat of Solomon. But there were other magical things. I think it's Josephus who mentions a Jewish exorcist that would cast out demons in the name of Solomon. And because I'm not the master of demons, but Solomon was, and if I can invoke his power, in fact, that's what exorcism means. It's based on the Greek word exousia, or authority. And so he was, a lot of things were attributed to him. And it's ironic. I mean, supposedly these words had authority because he's the one that coined them, apparently. But in fact, they're appropriating the name of Solomon. Like, was there a historical Solomon? Well, probably not. It was really Shalmaneser the third, and so forth. But it became a name to conjure with, as they say. And in the Testament of Solomon, that's the part I remember and that I think makes up the bulk of the book. He calls out, he has an audience of people, and he calls up demon after demon, and it confesses its name and what it's in charge of, and it's described. There are various demonologies, as such books are called, in the Middle Ages. And the idea was that you might try to conjure them up and ask for favors and so on. This didn't mean you were a diabolist or a demon worshiper. The idea was, just like Jesus says in the Beelzebul controversy, you can't rob a mighty man of his possessions unless you sneak up on him and bind him first. Then you got free run of the place. Binding, that's a big exorcistic term. You're binding the demons. I think that passage originally was a defense of Jesus doing just what they're saying, casting out demons by the power of Beelzebul, the prince of demons. Like, if you can bind him, well, he commands the other ones, and you can tell him, look, this is what I want done, send one of your flunkies to do it, to bring me treasure or whatever. So in the Middle Ages, there are various of these grimoires and so on, that where you're invoking an angel to order demons around because they're stronger and can bind the demons to their service. Well, in the course of this, the demons also have duties in the hierarchy of fiends in hell. And there's a great horror movie called Hereditary, which is about this. They're trying to get, I think it's Paimon, one of the kings of hell, who is the bringer of great knowledge, gnosis, really. And so they're trying to conjure him up. And they do. It's, oh, what a flick. And so each one of these demons, at Solomon's command, says who he is, what he does, and all of that. And they describe him. And they're like a head with no body, an animal with several heads, the mixed parts of a rooster and a horse together, and so on. Why? What's the deal? I mean, that's kind of like the beasts from the sea in Daniel, which is, again, the same sort of stuff. He has visions of the beyond and all that. Well, that's what is called by anthropologists liminality. There are, like, what you're doing in anything from a rite of passage, where you go from infancy to childhood by a naming ceremony or baptism or circumcision, to a puberty rite where you kill an animal on a hunt or kill an enemy in battle, or you die symbolically by being buried under dirt or leaves or water and come back. Well, you've died to the earlier period of life and been reborn into another. And then there are other stages of evolution, of initiation beyond that. Well, these rituals involve costumes and masks by those present, and they also are like half this and half that. Why? I mean, why not just some weird thing like Godzilla? No, it's got to be part this and part that to symbolize the line between two realities. You're crossing from one into the other. And when you're invoking demons, obviously you're breaching the barrier between this world and the next, either up there or down there or both. And that's why Leviathan and all these critters in Revelation look that way, because you're leaving the earth for the heavenly realm. And so we see in these in something like the Testament of Solomon with its descriptions, perfect examples of what anthropologists have said, have found in initiation rites the world over. And so it's very relevant anthropologically and to inform us on what they thought wisdom meant. In fact, in one place, where in the Gospels where Jesus casts out a demon, somebody says, "Can this be the son of David?" Well, we've always figured he means the Davidic king who was to come. But one scholar suggested, no, given what they're commenting on, they think, is this Solomon returned? Solomon, the son of David, who has power over demons? It could be. And so it's a very interesting thing. And it shows how religion and magic were kind of fused in the ancient world, too. This is why I included a discussion of the Testament of Solomon in Holy Fable, Volume 1. It ain't in the Bible, but it ought to be.
Thank you, Dr. Bobby.